The TikTok ban just happened. This is the message you're getting if you're trying to log in to TikTok right now. So this is absolutely brutal for small businesses and a whole bunch of people that use the app, not just for social media, for marketing purposes, get their products out, and everybody in between. And I made a video like this 8 months ago, and I said, this is going to be banned. And Americans are so naive. I cannot believe with you that you guys are so naive. So look at this comment that I've gotten 8 months ago, and it basically said that TikTok won't be banned, it will be sold to Cisco and all this other stuff. So what I'm gonna start doing is you know what? If you're posting comments like this and you're wrong, you're gonna owe me a coffee. So this is what we're gonna start doing. So I said, hey, this is my, let me know if I can give you my Venmo link. You're gonna owe me $5 and you're gonna buy me coffee. And so, because you said TikTok will be sold, not out of business, stop being a little chicken. So if you make these bold statements, yeah, you're just gonna owe me coffee. So I said, let me know if I can give you my Venmo link, it's $5. And now we're at a very, very interesting spot because we're looking at 170 million Americans use it for either putting marketing in, just consuming content, or actually learning about products. And yeah, there's some TikTok dances and all this other stuff, but it's going to really, really hurt businesses. And now we're starting to notice that not everybody has their constituents' best interest in mind. So that brings it up to me if I should run for Congress in the next 2 years for the state of Nevada. Because as I'm looking at it, it's like my representative did not vote in my best interest. No, Susie Lee did not vote how she should have voted for people that in Las Vegas because the food industry is huge. There's a lot of food reviewers on TikTok that bring people to Las Vegas because the most amazing food ever, right? And so now I'm thinking, and I've seen other people think about that too, is that these are not for the people. These politicians are not for the people. They don't give a shit. They vote with party, they vote with money. So now I was like, you know what, maybe I should run for Congress and vote actually what the people wanted. Because there's this other guy, this Jackson dude, that used TikTok to become huge person. He got like hundreds of thousands of followers, or even like a million or two, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to Congress and I'm doing all that." And now all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna ban TikTok because it's dangerous." It's not a ban; it's a forced sale. This is American ideologic, right? Americans think like that. Americans think, hey, if you can operate, you're gonna sell. But this is not how the world thinks. Some people say, you know what? Rather than giving out the secret sauce, we're just going to pull out of the market and let another app or just build a competitor take over that market space. Because if you have the secret sauce, think about this. If Coca-Cola says, if the United States comes and says, hey, you're going to either have to sell the secret Coke recipe or you're going to have to pull out of the US market. So what do? Well, Pepsi's probably going to lobby really, really hard in making that happen. So that's a wrong thing at the first spot, right? And second of all, is why would you give up the secret sauce? Why would you give up the algorithm where nobody can actually make a video and become a celebrity, become famous, and do all that kind of stuff, right? So it is absolutely crazy to see that all these people on this app used it to express themselves, used it to be creative, post their views and opinions, and then they said, you know what, there's Chinese interference and blah, 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 blah. And to that, I just say this is all a whole bunch of nonsense because it is not about Chinese data because they can just go and buy it. Remember Cambridge Analytica, and I always say that with Facebook. Facebook had so many leaks and all this other stuff. If you want the information that somebody has, you can now hack it. You can now go out and forcefully hack it. You don't need to go and download apps and make it all go happen. No, you can hack the Social Security office. You can go and you get targeted data. What is all these 170 million people? How many of these people actually hold valuable information? 500 maybe. So it's better to just target these people and and extract the information there than it is for just a whole bunch of Americans to like, oh, we're going to see what they're doing. Who gives a flying shit? Who gives an absolute flying shit what all these people are doing, right? Oh, there's data, they can do this and they can do that. And it's not about that. It's about them shaping opinions, about them using the FBI to control the narrative. So when you looked at the Zuckerberg podcast with Joe Rogan, he said that his fact checkers and his high level people got contacted by the FBI, and they basically swayed public opinions. And with TikTok, they can't do that because they said, oh, it's like foreign owned. But all of a sudden, it's like it's owned 60% globally and 40% by ByteDance. So it's a 40% owned Chinese company, and the rest is whole owned by global investors. So now you're looking at like, okay, we're looking at that. So where's the issue? The issue comes up when you can't enforce your way of living, your way of thinking onto the general population, right? So how you can do it is like mind control, right? You basically say you suppress some voices and you let other ones rise. And depending on which side of the aisle you're from, it's very good or it's very bad. But it's not fair, right? It is not how it should be done. And I think both sides can agree that suppressing the other person's voice is not a good thing, right? Because all of a sudden you're going to be like in Nazi world, right? Where you silence your opponents and then all of a sudden you go crazy. And so this is where stuff needs to change. And when I'm thinking about all of these people that make a living off of TikTok, that were TikTok influencers, that talked about their own lives, that talked about their own products, then that use it for business, and now don't have that revenue stream, it's going to be really, really bad because there's 8 million businesses on TikTok that make money from it, right? And so we're going to see, and I'm really hoping that Americans will actually stand up and say, this is not representing my interest. But the biggest problem that I have with Americans is that we're so short-sighted. We're so short-sighted that in order for us to forget this, there just needs to be another war or something else, and we're starting to forget things. And so when the next election comes around, it's all forgotten. It is all forgotten. These people that loved these people that voted for the ban, they're not going to vote somebody else in just because of it. No, they're not going to do that. They already forgot about it. And yeah, that is one big problem I've always seen in US politics, that the news cycle changes and people forget, and then they say, oh, it wasn't this, and then they start using the blame game and says, oh, it wasn't, I was forced to do it, and then they vote the same people in again just because of it. And so it is time to wake up and say, you know what, we are done. We are absolutely done. We need to vote people in that aren't career politicians. And when you're starting to say, you know what, we're going to stop voting in career politicians and let's get somebody that actually has our best interest in mind, that's actually for the people and isn't party affiliated or isn't or is actually interested in being a good constituent for their people, all of a sudden you're like, this is how it's going to go. And then all of a sudden there will be change. Because when you pass bills at 5 o'clock before midnight and you haven't even read it and they call it an aid package, and the aid package has 1,600 pages, that ain't no aid package. That is some hocus pocus random thing that they're just going to pass, and has a whole bunch of crazy nonsense in it where they spend $50 million for some mice testing and $40 million for saving some frog in random Arkansas that has like 2 or 3 of them, and I don't even know how they got there. So what I've learned is that my politicians do not have my best interest, and it is just so clear to me that something's got to change. Something has to change, and we got to start voting in these people that represent businesses, that represent the majority of us, not just a 1 or 2% that'll benefit from a TikTok ban. Because guess who's going to be the one that's going to get the most out of this ban? It is social media platforms, right? Meta, YouTube, maybe Amazon, because of the TikTok shop. So it is these competitors, these huge conglomerates that are saying, I just eliminated a huge competitor of mine. And now all of a sudden you're like, shit, I just eliminated competition. And this is not how you eliminate competition. Because if you eliminate competition with the legal stuff, it's just not a good thing. You need to eliminate them with being a better product, with a better software. But in the US, you just throw a little money at it, and then once you throw enough money at it, you can make things go away. And now people are saying, you know what? Now let's just use RedNote, and let's use different apps because we're not going to go back to Meta, or we're not going to go back to YouTube. And so this is actually what I see, and I think it's absolutely valid for most Americans to say, you know what, we're not going back, we're going to try something new. And all of a sudden, you're seeing with China that these Chinese people are like, you Americans don't live like this? And the Chinese people are like, you Americans don't hate Chinese people? And all of a sudden, there's talk, and that is what they didn't want. That is the absolute worst case scenario for anybody. That all of a sudden, they're saying, oh, China is actually has a lot of really nice people. They live a completely different life, but actually are really nice. They're teaching us Chinese. They're doing all this other stuff. And you see that with Duolingo has been downloaded, like, I don't know how many times. It's like, it's skyrocketed. Um, Chinese learn models on Duolingo have like skyrocketed because they're like, hey, I want to get to learn what they're talking about and doing all this stuff. This was the worst fear of all these people, because when they're starting to say, oh, China's the number one enemy, China's the number one enemy, and you're gonna go on Fox News, CNN, and say China's our main adversary, and all of a sudden you're like, that's not what I'm seeing, that's not what I'm hearing, because you are on RedNote, and RedNote, you're talking to all these other Chinese people, and they're actually like, no, we're actually really cool people, and we're actually just hanging out and living our own lives, and this is how much utilities cost, and all this other stuff. So you're like, oh wow, this is actually really, really cool. And so, worst case scenario came true, and now we're seeing that I've been on RedNote, and I've actually really, really liked it. It's Chinese for right now, but I think they're working overtime on making the languages to English with English subtitles, Chinese, and all this other stuff. So this is going to be a global thing where everybody's going to start, contributing and start being like a global app. And this is the worst thing that could have happened to the US government, where they're going to say, we're going to go against TikTok because of all this, because the servers and the algorithm is placed in China. Now you have an app that is actually in China and is controlled by China. So this is even a worse outcome. But hey, and this is what I've been telling you guys for a very long time. Whatever the government touches turns to shit. And for these people that are still like, we gotta have socialized, all this other stuff, is don't even go there. It is a great idea when you think about it, and in your thoughts, in your mind, it works great. But as soon as it gets implicated, it's like telling a toddler how to do a marathon sprint. In theory, yeah, it looks great. You teach them how to run and then you just do it. But it just doesn't work. The capabilities just aren't there. And you just can't do it. You just can't do it. The government, whatever it touches, turns to shit. That's why people say there should be less government, because whatever they do, it just blows up in their faces. And I've made a lot of videos where people overcharge the government by millions for soap dispensers and all this other shit. So you're gonna pay for it regardless. So what you truly, truly want is less government interference. Because if you have less government interference, that means there's less likelihood of them messing it up. The less the government is actually in your life, the less chances of them messing it up. Because when you go to the passport office, you go to the DMV, you see how that process is. Now imagine they're going to be in charge of healthcare. Imagine them being in charge of way more stuff. Imagine them being in charge of insurance. Imagine that you're going to go and say, no more private insurance, we're just going to go government route. And you're going to be doing a DMV thing with insurance. Imagine that case scenario. We're going to wait in line, and then, technicalities here, technicalities there, and all this other nonsense. And fraud's just going to go through the roof. And in theory, these old ideas that you guys had sounded great. But actual implementation, it's not going to happen. So, lesson learned. You guys owe me coffee, especially that person right there that says stop being a chicken. Yeah, you owe me coffee, 100%. All these other people that said, oh, it's not going to get banned. Of course it was, because why would you sell the secret sauce? I wouldn't have done that either. I would just have said, sorry, can't do it, and see what happens. So absolutely craziness. Yeah, for all these people that used it and their constituents like mine voted for it, let's not forget this in 2 years when we're back with the ballots. But my prediction is it'll be forgotten and nobody will talk about it unless there's gonna be a huge failure of businesses because of it, and people are gonna be super pissed about it. So then all of a sudden, when your business fails, you're gonna say, you know what, TikTok was a huge source of my income, I'm out. So yeah, it's gonna be definitely interesting. And so I'm gonna be voting. Maybe I'm gonna be running next year or in a year and a half, because Susie, you ain't got my back, lady. You did not treat me as a constituent. You did not vote in my best interest. So it is time for you to step down, get out, and do whatever the hell you other skills have, because the people should come for you. So let me know what you guys think. Please like and subscribe. And yeah, if you like content like this, like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see ya in the next one.